Hey everyone. Welcome back to the Daily English Podcast. You know, we're always exploring unique ways to help you improve your English.
Yeah, but sometimes it's not just about studying harder. It's about changing the way we think.
Exactly. Because sometimes the wrong mindsets and methods can really hold you back. To make real progress, you've got to let go of some old ideas.
And that's what we're diving into today. We've got 5 mindsets that you've probably never heard of before. But trust me, they could be the key to your breakthrough in English.
Wow, that sounds exciting. I'm really curious to see what these mindsets are, and I'm sure our listeners will be too.
Oh, definitely. If you're feeling stuck or not making the progress you'd like, this could be the game changer you need.
Before we dive into today's content, I just want to give a massive shout out to all of you amazing supporters out there.
Seriously, the comments we've been getting about our ebooks are insane. So many of you have told us how your everyday English conversations have totally leveled up and how your confidence has absolutely skyrocketed.
That kind of feedback, honestly, motivates us to keep creating even more awesome resources for you guys.
Your likes, shares, and support are literally what keep this channel growing and the content coming.
If you haven't checked out our ebook yet, the link is in the description below. Now let's get into today's video. All right, let's jump into our first mindset. Don't study too much. I know, it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but hear me out.
Yeah, I was about to say, people usually think that the more you study, the faster you'll learn, right?
Right, but actually, studying too much can have some serious downsides.
Overdoing it can lead to mental fatigue. Instead of enjoying English, you might start associating it with stress.
Exactly. And if you push too hard, you could even burn out and stop learning altogether.
That's so true. When you focus too much on covering a lot of ground, you end up with just a surface-level understanding.
And we're aiming for deep knowledge here, not just memorizing a bunch of words.
So, what if we told you there's a way to learn English smarter instead of harder?
That's where the minimal effective dose approach comes in.
Ooh, that sounds fancy. What is it exactly?
Basically, it means you focus on just a few things each day, like one new vocabulary word, one idiom, and one phrasal verb.
And that's it. It's all about small, consistent steps. The goal is depth, not breadth.
You really want to understand the word and how it's used, not just know that it exists.
Right. And one way to do this is by studying the background of a word, like its etymology and related words. That gives you a deeper connection to it.
Oh, and don't forget about collocations. Those are words that often go together.
For example, we say make a decision, but not do a decision. Learning these natural word combinations makes your English sound way more fluent.
Also, try using your new words in different sentence structures and find real-life examples from books, podcasts, or movies.
Yeah, and here's a fun tip. Keep a journal in English. Write about your day, your thoughts, and try using the new words you've learned.
I love that idea. When learning feels personal, it's so much easier to remember.
Oh, absolutely. And don't forget to review what you've learned regularly using spaced repetition. It's a great way to make sure new words stick.
So, remember, instead of cramming for hours, aim for a few quality lessons each day.
And make sure you really understand what you're learning. Trust me, your brain will thank you.
Okay, let's move on to our second mindset. Document your life in English. This might sound a bit unusual, but it's actually a really powerful tool for learning.
Yeah. So what we mean by documenting is basically making English a part of your everyday life. Turning it into something you naturally use when you're thinking, writing, or even talking to yourself.
The great thing about documenting your life in English is that it creates an authentic context. You're using English in real situations that matter to you.
Right. And when you do that, you start building a personalized vocabulary that's actually relevant to your own experiences.
You'll be using the words that are important to you. And trust me, that makes all the difference.
And don't forget, when you create those personal connections with the words you learn, they stick better.
It's like when you have a memory attached to a word, it becomes way easier to remember.
That's a really good point. And the best part? It gives you a record of your progress over time.
Exactly. When you look back at your journal or notes, you'll actually see how much you've improved.
So, what are some practical ways to start documenting in English?
One simple way is to keep a daily journal. Just write about your day, your activities, or even your thoughts. It's like having a conversation with yourself in English.
Yeah, and you don't have to make it complicated. You can start with just a few sentences. What did you do today? How did you feel? Just write it all down in English.
It'll feel super natural once you get going. Another great method is recording voice notes. Talk about your day or your ideas in English, and then when you have time, transcribe them. It's a great way to practice both speaking and writing. At the same time,
Oh, I love that idea. You can also create photo captions in English for your personal pictures, just like how you'd post on social media, but all in English.
exactly. And even simple things like shopping lists, to-do lists, or notes to yourself. Imagine writing out your grocery list in English or setting reminders for your day. That's language practice without even trying.
Totally. And there are even some language learning apps out there that have journaling features. They can help you keep track of your progress and give you fun prompts to write about in English.
Now, here's a cool idea that can take your learning to the next level, shifting your internal monologue to English.
That basically means trying to think in English instead of your native language throughout your day.
It sounds a bit challenging at first, but trust me, it's so worth it. Start by narrating simple things you're doing.
Like, if you're cooking, you could think to yourself, I'm chopping the onions now. I'm stirring the soup.
Exactly. And as you get better, try moving on to more complex thoughts, like thinking about your decisions, emotions, or even plans.
For example, should I take the bus or walk today? I think walking is better because it's nice outside.
And don't worry if you get stuck on a word. That's actually a great opportunity. Just note what word you're missing, and then learn it over time.
This will help you build confidence. And here's the cool thing. As you practice thinking in English, you're actually building neural pathways that make it easier to retrieve English words when you need them.
Right. It becomes more automatic, and you won't have to pause to search for the right word.
That's a big one. It also helps with reducing anxiety when you do speak, because you're already thinking in English all the time, so it becomes second nature.
Yeah. And by shifting your internal monologue, you're not just learning to speak more naturally, you're setting a solid foundation for real, everyday conversations in English. All right, let's talk about mindset number 4. Make as many mistakes as possible.
I know that sounds a little scary, but hear me out. It's actually one of the best ways to learn.
Yep. It sounds strange, right? But the science behind it is fascinating. When we make mistakes, our brain goes into overdrive trying to correct them, and that helps us learn better.
Right. When you make an error, your brain has to work harder to fix it, and that effort actually helps you remember the correct information much more strongly than just learning passively.
And mistakes also point out the specific areas where we need to improve. It's like a GPS for your learning journey, guiding you to the places where you need more practice.
And you know what? The emotional reaction we have when we make mistakes actually helps our brain remember those lessons. So even though it feels uncomfortable in the moment, it actually helps you learn faster. So how do we create a productive system for learning through mistakes?
First, you can select a range of topics to write about. Pick things that interest you, whether it's something happening in the world or something personal to you.
Yeah, like writing about current events or your hobbies. Then challenge yourself to write a timed 100-word essay. No references allowed, just write from what you know.
And after you've written it, don't just accept your errors and move on. Use grammar checking tools like Grammarly to spot mistakes.
But here's the trick. Don't just accept every correction right away. Look for patterns in the errors you keep making. This is where the real learning happens.
Instead of just fixing the mistakes, try rewriting the essay from memory, applying what you've learned. This helps your brain internalize the correct version.
Then, compare your new version to the suggestions from the tool. Are there still some mistakes? Great. That means you found areas to focus on. It's all part of the process.
You can also keep an error journal, write down the mistakes you tend to make over and over, and review them regularly.
Over time, you'll start to notice patterns, and you'll get better at avoiding those same mistakes.
That's a solid strategy. Now, let's talk about the psychological side of things. A lot of people are afraid of making mistakes, especially because of perfectionism.
Exactly. They think if they make a mistake, it means they're bad at something, and this fear often prevents people from practicing.
But the truth is, mistakes are essential for growth. It's like learning to ride a bike. If you're too afraid to fall, you'll never learn how to ride.
Yeah, and there's also cultural conditioning. In many cultures, people are taught to avoid errors at all costs.
But in language learning, it's the exact opposite. The more mistakes you make, the faster you'll improve.
And even though it can feel uncomfortable to have someone point out your mistakes, that's actually good. It's feedback, and it helps you get better.
So don't be afraid of correction. See it as a helpful tool, not a judgment.
So, how can we create safe spaces for making mistakes?
One way is to join language exchange communities where mistakes are normalized. Everyone is learning, and people are supportive.
Yeah. And working with tutors who focus on error correction is great too. They can guide you and point out your mistakes without making you feel bad about it.
It's all about improvement, not perfection.
You can also find speaking partners who are at a similar level to you. That way, you'll feel more comfortable making mistakes together and learning from each other.
And remember, making mistakes is part of the process. Don't be afraid to make them. They're your opportunity to learn and grow. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest challenges in language learning: staying motivated.
At first, it's okay. You're still fresh with it. But after a while, that excitement fades, and we hit a plateau.
Yeah, the progress isn't as obvious anymore, and the novelty of learning a new language starts to wear off.
It starts to feel like a routine, and that's when motivation starts to slip.
And let's not forget that in the beginning, external things like grades or tests can give us a push, but after some time, those motivators disappear, and it's just you and the language.
So, how do we tackle this?
Well, the key is building a system that keeps you motivated long-term.
First, connect your language learning goals to your personal interests and values.
When you make learning English meaningful to your life, it's easier to stay motivated.
Right. For example, if you love movies, maybe focus on learning phrases from your favorite films.
Or if you're passionate about travel, learn travel-related vocabulary. It makes learning feel relevant and exciting again.
Another great strategy is creating visible ways to track your progress.
This can be as simple as marking off days on a calendar or using an app to track how many words or phrases you've learned each week.
It's all about seeing that you're making progress.
Absolutely. And joining a community can help too.
And don't forget to celebrate your small victories. Every time you learn a new word, use a new phrase, or complete a lesson, celebrate it. These small wins can keep you motivated. When you connect with others who are also learning English, it creates a sense of accountability.
You can support each other, share progress, and motivate each other when you feel stuck. That's a great point. And speaking of routines, have you heard of habit stacking?
Oh yeah, that's when you make learning part of your daily life by connecting it to something you already do, right?
Exactly. For example, if you always have coffee in the morning, use that time to review your vocabulary.
I love that idea. It makes learning feel less like a chore. And when we talk about consistency, it's all about small daily actions.
You don't need to study for hours, just little bits every day. These small actions build up over time.
Yes, it's better to study for 15 minutes every day than to cram for a few hours once a week.
And if life gets in the way, remember the never miss twice rule. If you miss a day, don't let it turn into 2 days.
That's a great rule. It keeps you from slipping into bad habits.
And it's important to focus on process goals, not just outcome goals.
Instead of saying, I want to be fluent in English by next month, try setting a goal like, I'll study for 15 minutes every day.
It's more sustainable. And to keep motivation up, Schedule regular check-ins with yourself.
Reflect on what you've learned each week and adjust your plan if needed. It's important to see your own progress.
And don't forget to make use of spaced repetition. It's a powerful tool for remembering what you've learned.
You can use apps or even create your own system to review things at the right intervals.
Visual tools can be super helpful too. Track your learning on a calendar or use an app that shows your progress.
When you see how far you've come, it gives you that extra push to keep going.
And lastly, pay attention to when you feel most energized during the day.
Try to schedule your language practice during those peak hours. You'll get the most out of your learning when you're at your best.
Absolutely. And the key takeaway here is that motivation isn't something you wait for. It's something you create by building systems and habits that work for you.
Now let's talk about a fun and creative way to practice English. Creating secret social media accounts.
This might sound a bit unusual, but trust me, it can be a game changer.
Yeah, it's all about using the power of anonymity to give you the freedom to practice without worrying about what people think.
When you create an account that's not tied to your real identity, you remove a lot of the pressure that comes with social media.
You don't have to worry about friends or family judging you. It's like a safe space to experiment with English and improve your skills gradually.
The best part? No one knows it's you. And the more you practice, the more confident you get.
It's like you're building up a public version of your English without the fear of being corrected or judged in front of your real-world social circle.
So how do we actually set up these accounts?
Well, the first step is choosing a platform that suits your interests.
If you like quick thoughts, Twitter could be a good place. If you love visual content, maybe try Instagram. And if you enjoy discussions, Reddit might be your go-to.
And once you choose a platform, follow accounts that interest you, whether it's books, movies, travel, or something else.
Make sure you're learning vocabulary that's relevant to your passions.
Start small, like posts, leave short comments. Just simple things to get used to interacting in English.
Over time, try to create your own content. Share a thought, a funny story, or a picture with a caption.
The key is to practice gradually. On Instagram, you can use stories to practice casual, everyday language.
On Twitter, you could engage in threads or polls. It's a great way to practice different kinds of English.
That's right. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Try joining English language challenges on social media.
For example, on Twitter or Instagram, you might find a hashtag challenge like UARC Book Talk or a photography challenge.
This is a great way to practice your English while joining a community.
It's also a great way to start using new vocabulary in real-time conversations.
Commenting on trending topics or sharing your opinion on news, entertainment, or hobbies can really help you get comfortable with natural language.
And let's not forget the bigger benefits. Using social media this way helps you get an authentic understanding of how English is used in real life.
You'll see how native speakers interact, and you might even get corrected by them in a casual way. We talked about focusing on quality over quantity, documenting your life in English, embracing mistakes, staying motivated, and using social media for anonymous practice.
Yep. Each of these mindsets can shift the way you approach learning. They'll help you build stronger, more sustainable habits and make English learning more fun and effective.
Remember, the key is to keep things simple, consistent, and personal. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and always find ways to connect English to your real life.
Exactly. The more you make English a part of your daily routine, the more natural it will become.
Thanks for tuning in today. If you want to quickly improve your daily English conversation skills, check out our ebooks.
Take care, everyone.